In a study done by the Reading and Literacy Discovery Center of Cincinnati Children's Hospital, they discovered that children who were read to often showed growth in the language and literacy areas of their brain, whereas children who spent 2 hours per day on screens, which actually included television, showed underdevelopment in the organized white matter area of their brains. Hello and welcome to Blooming Curious, the podcast that's all about nurturing that natural curiosity in our early years kids and students. I'm Edwina, your host from the Ed's Lessons blog, a passionate advocate for play and inquiry, and on a mission to keep children curious and questioning. The days of talk and chalk are over. We're diving into the world of integrated, inquiry and nature-based learning and exploring the strategies that create lifelong learners. So if you're a classroom or homeschool educator or even a curious parent, then this is the place for you. Hello and welcome to another episode of Blooming Curious. I want to start today by thanking you for tuning in. It's wonderful to have you here, and I truly feel honored that you are choosing to listen to this podcast when you have so many others to choose from. So thanks for listening and being here. Now, as I mentioned in last week's episode 34, teachers are currently enjoying a very well-deserved break from the classroom. But as a teacher, I also know that it doesn't last long before we start thinking about going back to school and our lesson plans. In last week's episode, I gave you some tips about how to approach your planning so that you lighten the load, not just by sharing it with colleagues in the same year group, but also by using an integrated approach when it comes to your planning. Today, we're going to talk about the role of picture books in our planning. Picture books are a valuable provocation for any lesson. They can be a powerful catalyst to spark wonder and curiosity and get kids thinking, and of course, be a powerful resource for teaching a variety of literacy skills. Did you know that there is scientific evidence for the powerful benefits of reading picture books to children on their brain development? In a study done by the Reading and Literacy Discovery Center of Cincinnati Children's Hospital, they discovered that children who were read to often showed growth in the language and literacy areas of their brain, whereas children who spent 2 hours per day on screens, which actually included television, showed underdevelopment in the organized white matter area of their brains. Now, the white matter area, which actually I only thought that we only had gray matter, but no, apparently we have a white matter area as well. That's the area that's really important because that's where the brain communicates with other areas. And if this white matter is not well developed, then the brain's processing speed slows down and learning is negatively impacted. I'll link to the study in the show notes so you can read it for yourself. Now, in the same study of 47 children, I know it's not huge, but still, it's a study, found that children who use screens for more than 1 hour a day, and let's face it, most do, had poorer emerging literacy skills, poorer expressive language, and tested lower in the rapid naming of objects. On the other hand, they found that children who were read to frequently scored higher on cognitive tests. But it doesn't just end there. In another study done by the same institution, they studied the effects of 3 different formats of stories on children's brains: audio only, a picture book being read to children, and an animated cartoon version. Can you guess which format was best for learning? If you guessed the picture book being read to children, you would be correct. Now, I have written a blog post about this topic where I have linked the studies, so go to the show notes and read more about it in the blog post once you've listened to this episode. Now, when it comes to using picture books in our classrooms, it's safe to say that not all books are created equal. So as educators, we do need to find those books that have rich language, great illustrations, and also work to help us meet all the other criteria for planning our lessons around a curriculum. When you think and plan for setting up your provocations in your room, Remember that picture books, just like your non-fiction texts, are also provocations. They can be the starting point for exploring non-fiction topics. And a good picture book provides a well-constructed narrative that can be used to teach narrative writing. And it should have that clear story mountain so that the children can easily identify the events that happen in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And it should lend itself to rich character descriptions and analysis and make it easy for children to spot the dilemma or the problem and, of course, the resolution at the end of the story. I love using picture books as a catalyst for inquiry too. For example, as you plan for the term or your quarter ahead, think about picture books that you can use that do a lot of heavy lifting. This is where it's really helpful to chat to your school librarian so that you can use picture books that not only have high literacy value, but simultaneously link to other subject areas like your humanities or your social studies or your science or maths areas. In the blog post that I've linked, I also linked to Kath Murdoch, where she has a fabulous list of books linked to inquiry topics. So don't forget to go to the show notes once you've listened and follow that link. Now, I have 2 integrated lesson plans on my website under bloomingcurious.com/resources. You'll find them there. One is for a delightful picture book, Q Pupil 5 by Nick Butterworth, which is great if you're learning about the letter Q, for example. Or perhaps you've got children that are interested in aliens or space as a fun topic. Then this is great. The integrated lesson plan provides you with inquiry questions, problem-solving tasks, and a scope for creativity through hands-on tasks and experiences across English, mathematics, and design and technologies. Another integrated lesson plan on my website is around the picture book The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. This is great for integrating science, where you and your students could plan and plant a garden, explore the seasons and the needs of living things, especially plants. Both these lesson plans are suitable for K-2, and I will place links to both these resources in the show notes. So, how often should we be reading picture books to our students and children? The answer, of course, is daily. You will probably also, in addition to other stories, want to be reading the picture book that you're linking your planning to every single day. Young children begin learning the rhythm of language, the rhythm of the story. And it's great in the early years because, as we know, talk comes before writing. Phonological awareness comes before writing. And when they are being read to often, just like that research I mentioned in the beginning of the episode shows, it helps their brains to organize that information and benefits that processing, which is so important for understanding and language development. So yes, a good picture book has a rich language and literacy component, but it should also lend itself to other curriculum areas to make your life easier when it comes to cross-curriculum planning, and so that children can make connections to different areas and they can see how different areas are actually linked. Now, aside from picture books that link to other subject areas that you will be planning your learning experiences around for the term or quarter ahead, picture books are also useful when you're having to talk about or introduce sensitive topics to children, things like bullying or death in the family or friendship issues. And rhyming picture books also play a crucial part in the early years when we are developing children's phonological awareness. And here, rhyming picture books are not just fun to read, but they're crucial when it comes to developing phonological awareness. I have a list of rhyming picture books in my resource library, and I'll leave a link where you can download your free PDF of that in the show notes too. So let's do a quick recap of the most important takeaways here. When you're planning your learning experiences and your provocations, find picture books that not only lend themselves to rich literacy experiences, but also link to other subject areas so that you can plan integrated units of work across the curriculum. Try and include hands-on experiences in all your lesson plans that link to the story. For example, in the Curious Garden, it lends itself to planting and planning your own garden. So when you're looking for those picture books, make sure you can link them to hands-on experiences, to design and technology and other areas which are really going to save you time. And lastly, remember that picture books and reading to children are essential for creating those neural pathways in the brain that ultimately benefit brain development and learning in a much better way than watching a video or a cartoon of the story. And if we truly value children and their learning, switch off the smartboard, switch off the screens, get out the books, and let's read them, because they are far superior to screens, as the research now shows. So I hope you found this episode useful as you begin thinking and planning for the new term or your quarter ahead. I'd love to know your thoughts, and if you have any other ideas that you would like to share around picture books and their use in planning an integrated learning experience, you can send me an email at contact@edslessons.com. It hasn't changed yet. It will change soon to bloomingcurious.com. And once again, thanks so much for listening. And if you found anything in today's episode useful, could you please do me a favor and share it with a friend or colleague? You can also go to bloomingcurious.com/podcast, where you will find all the links and an easy to read and easy to share link for this episode. I look forward to being in your ears again next week. And until then, remember to stay blooming curious.